What's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of the OneFourthCareers podcast. I'm Xavier, your host, and I'm here with Javanni. Javanni graduated from the University of WestIndies, Mona, with a dual degree in economics and management studies in 2016. Now, Javanni works as a senior consultant at EY-Parthenon, which is EY's global strategy consulting arm. Javanni is the conference lead for Out for Undergrad Business, the world's largest conference for LGBTQ2 plus college students interested in business and finance. Javanni identifies as non-binary, uses any pronouns, and lives in Brooklyn, New York. Javanni, welcome to the pod, family. How you doing?
No worries. Thank you so much, Xavier. I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, man. Super excited for this episode. How's your summer treating you?
Listen, summer has been it's been good so far. Like I, being from the Caribbean, I'm born and raised in Jamaica. I'm always gonna be around for a good time in the sun. It's definitely been hot the past couple of weeks in New York, but I got to do some traveling, and I've also been hosting a lot of friends and family because New York in the summer is when everybody wants to visit. So I think in August, at like 75% of August, I'm gonna have between 2 to 6 people in my apartment at any one time.
Oh my goodness. Y'all gonna be having a good time, eating good too, I'm
Listen,
sure of it.
very that.
I love that. I love that. Cool, man. Well, you already mentioned you mentioned some of your background and where you're from. We know where you went to school and some of that. Tell the people a little bit more about your background. What's relevant for them to know about Javanni?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Jamaica, and I moved to the US less than a decade ago, closer to actually more like half a decade ago. And I grew up in a very expansive family with aunts and my parents, my grandparents, and I'd say a very, I had a very like just vibrant childhood. I remember like growing up with my cousins and just being apart, like just having fun. Um, so that was very like core to my experiences. I also very vividly remember growing up queer and like different, right? Especially being a dark skinned boy, right? Doing at school, like, just being not being, sort of like others,
Yeah.
and having to like navigate that environment, especially in a very like socially conservative country like Jamaica. So that was, also like very core to my experiences. Uh, but from there, decided to sort of protest through my excellence, which is sort of sad to say, but like I had to do what I had to do to just, continue to make it. And that's what I did. Went through college, and started working in consulting in Jamaica, just, for want of a better life.
Yeah. I really appreciate you mentioning a lot of what you brought up in your background. Also taking it a little bit back to your adolescent years. First segment here is called the step back. I want to hit a step back from your career that we're going to dig into a lot and ask you, what did you want to be when you were younger?
I I wanted to be a lawyer. And I'll tell you
Mhm.
why. Every report card that I got, it was like talkative, talks too much, right? Like this person disrupts class. And I'm like, I am not like, I don't think I was doing, anything different. But
Yeah.
shout out to all the people who got talkative on their school report cards growing up. Because I know we're all doing well right now.
Mhm.
So I want to become a lawyer because that's what people told me. In college, I went to an all-boys school,
Mhm.
like a traditional all-boys school in Jamaica, and one of our alums was like high commissioner or an ambassador to the UK. And I remember going up to him, I was like, "How do I like, become like a diplomat and like, do what you want to do?" And he was like, "You can go the lawyer route, which is what I wanted to do,
Mhm.
or you could do economics and finance." And he was like, "We need more of those people like in like the diplomatic corps."
Yeah.
So he was like, "Go do economics." And that's what I did. I went to university and did economics and also tax and management. And
Mhm.
for the longest, I wanted to do like corporate social responsibility. And then at the end of my degree, sort of clicked to do hardcore finance. Because I think that's where, the folks with the dollars, like that's where they make the real impact. And I wanted to be a part of the real impact, at least have the say. in how like society shifted and shaped.
Yeah, sounds really intentional the way you told that story of, the mindset that you had as you were talking to mentors and thinking about what you wanted to do. Seems like you had a lot together, it sounds like. But I love that. So thank you for that recount. Stepping away from that segment, you are a senior consultant. Can you share a little bit about your role and responsibilities and some of what you do?
Yeah, so I'm going to bifurcate it and I'm going to look at, being a senior consultant and then being a senior consultant in the M&A group,
Mhm.
or the transactions group, which is where I am. So being a senior consultant, you are maybe two rungs or two levels or two ranks out of college. So you get promoted 2 times before you become a senior consultant. But you're also you're both right before a manager. So you're in a sweet spot where you're basically like a, not senior, but you're not junior. And in that, a lot of responsibility. So typically as consultants, we work with clients on like different business needs or different business programs that they have. As a senior consultant, I am accountable to the higher ups. I'm also accountable to the junior staff. So I'm like teaching them the ropes, getting them on board with, what we should be doing within the project, but also ensuring that every bit of detail is completed on our scope, is seen from start to finish. So it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of learning that you can get as a senior consultant.
Okay, I smell a manager promotion coming. Tell them to hand out that bag. Tell them to hand out that bag. I love that. So how did you enter into that role? How did you acquire that opportunity to be a consultant?
Yeah, so specifically, so I started my career when I moved to the US. I
Mhm.
started my career in finance. So I worked at the Swiss bank UBS, and I worked there in like finance strategy across LATAM, EMEA, and the US for around 3 years.
Mhm.
And that was really instrumental because it really showed me how institutions allocated capital, and also being there during COVID. We're planning for stress and like a macro event for COVID to happen, like being at a big bank at the time, it was just very eye-opening, especially as, sort of second lines of defense and the people who see things first. I remember like
Mm.
bringing up COVID to the business from like January 2020, like literally right after we came back from New Year's. So just, being amongst that was really foundational for me. I went to a conference called Rumble 2020. It was lockdown, had nothing else to do, it was free.
Yeah.
So Rumble for folks is reaching on MBA. It's an MBA conference for LGBTQ folks. I
Mm.
was not interested in doing an MBA, but I was like, people gonna be there, so I'm a network. It's a Zoom room anyway,
That.
like we're all at home, it's whatever. And couple couple weeks after that, I was coming up on 3 years at UBS, and I was like, within the next year, I want to like leave. A couple weeks after that, a recruiter who I met in a Zoom room had reached out and said like, "Hey, we're having this rotational program at a mid-sized consulting firm, and we think you'd be a good fit." And did the interviews, did the cases, and that's how I pivoted into consulting. Started in
Mm.
quantitative valuation, so I was using a lot of my like analytical chops and Excel,
Mhm.
all that stuff. Um, to value assets, tangible and intangible, companies, startups, and then I transitioned into the transactions group within the rotation, and that's really where I landed. It was a good mix of all of my experiences, being a capital allocator, somebody who values capital
Yeah.
and know to actually like execute a transaction from start to finish. It was really like a good setup. So that's why I got into consulting, and from there, I pivoted to EY-Parthenon on reach out from a recruiter, but also had a friend who works here, and they were like, "Girl, just go through the process." And I was like, "Okay, girl." So that's what I did it, and
Yeah.
I'm coming up on 2 years here at the firm.
All right. Well, congrats on a lot of your success. Appreciate that breakdown. I think it highlights a lot about networking, about putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, it talking about leveraging your skills and what you studied in undergrad and the previous experience you had. It really shows how a person transitions from role to role. A lot of it is dependent on who you know, and it also kind of speaks a little bit to transferable skills. You went into consulting from a previous role, so you had skills that were relevant and that helped you thrive in consulting. And I think that's a really good segue into skills, though. So when you think about consulting, what are some of those skills that are top of mind for you that a person should have, obtain, or look to refine if they're going to thrive as a consultant?
Yeah, so I think broad-based consulting at a baseline, you have to, one, be a good communicator. You have to work on your communication skills, especially because you're working with so many different stakeholders, right? So that's one. And then two, I would say research, like analytical skills, those are very key to have as well. So I think those two, with if for her to bring in a third, I I'll tell you the third after I'm like still thinking for it. But one, communication skills. You're working with clients, you're working with um junior staff, you're working with senior staff, partners who like can be very demanding, the clients who can be very demanding. But you also have some folks who are just like very chill. So it really depends. You have to know how to pivot your communication style to different audiences because sometimes you're working on projects that are 2 weeks, 2 years, like you never know, and like stakeholders come and go. So you have to be able to pivot. And the second piece is research and being analytical. It's going to bring me into the third piece, which is having that can-do attitude. So like having good research core analytical is really being able to find a problem and get a solution together, or not even get a solution together, but at least like understand the problem to be able to break it down within like a framework so you can prescribe a solution. So your analytical chops, your research chops should be like, very good, whether you're a junior person or even like somebody who's a bit more senior, because you have to be able to like, validate some of the stuff that your analysts or associates are doing. And then the last piece was the can-do attitude. I feel like in consulting, the folks who really progress are the ones who raise their hands first, or even if they're not raising their hands, they're willing to, attack any problems that come at them, or just be open, right? Not to anything that's gonna like, be detrimental to your career, or you're not gonna set yourself up for success. But just being open to the possibilities is, I think, a good skill to have when you're transitioning into consulting.
I love that. See, you could tell you're a consultant. You gave me the 1, 2, 3. You gave me the framework. I love that. I love that. Talk to me about programs and associations. So you lead a huge conference that's super important. How would you talk about any additional programs and associations that if someone wants to be around like-minded individuals, maybe a part of your community, maybe a part of consulting, whatever comes top of mind for you, what are some that we could maybe highlight and talk to?
Yeah. So I'm gonna break this down for students and professionals.
Yeah.
Right. So for students, I think one place that students may not look at, right, or something that's like underutilized, are like consulting, like pro bono consulting organizations. So there's some like 180 Degrees Consulting. It's a national like pro bono consulting firm at different universities and schools where you get like actual consulting experience and reps, usually helping like nonprofits, small businesses in and around campus. I can tell you, as someone who reviews a lot of resumes and I'm involved in like recruiting, etc. Seeing someone who's like seeing someone who started from like an associate to engagement manager to probably some people are even like managing directors within their campus consulting org. It's very pleasing, right? Because it's like you know that this person knows how to do some analyses and know how to do some sorts of research,
Mhm.
and they're familiar with different frameworks. So that's one. And then conferences, I would definitely say like conferences, organizations like MLT, Out for Undergrad, SEO, the TMCF, like even like for engineering students like NESB, consulting firms go to all of those like different
Mm.
programs and conferences.
Yes.
So the key there is really to go, be ready, be prepared,
Mhm.
and network. Optimizing your LinkedIn as well, like, is also very helpful, and I can touch on that a bit after.
Mhm.
But yeah, like some of those conferences, but I think the one thing that's like underutilized is getting like hands-on consulting experience. So that's for students. For experienced folks, conferences, that's where you're gonna like really, tap into like Afrotech.
Mm.
Even like the business school conferences, right? So like
Yep.
like if you're in and around a business school, they're typically gonna have some sort of conference for the year, right? Or
Yeah.
they have like a private equity conference or an identity-based conference, like a Black Student Association conference.
Yep.
There are different professionals who are alums who work at these different firms who go to those, right? And sometimes they're even sponsored by the companies, right? Like, so you can go to those as a professional and network and get your way in to the
Mm.
doors of different firms. So yeah, I'd say those two, like, and even like some of the Black Tech Weeks that happen, just general networking events. But I think overall, you have to be open to networking. And I know it doesn't come easy for some, but the best thing that you can do is to prepare, right? So it's like optimizing your LinkedIn, getting your resume together. I think once you do that, you should be able to easily just like touch base with folks. Even if you're like, afraid or you're anxious, like that's okay as well.
Mhm.
Practicing with friends is also very helpful, but I think doing as much work beforehand will set you up for so much success.
Javanni just put y'all on a lot of game, a lot
Yes,
of game,
man.
a lot of
Me too.
associations, a lot of programs for people to be a part of. And I think it really ties perfectly into the next question I was going to ask you about the backgrounds of individuals who are consultants, because you mentioned something that was really nice, Jim, for people to know is that consulting firms go to a myriad of conferences, including NESB, just so many different ones, NABA, whatever it may be. And tell people a little bit about why consulting firms go to so many different kind of background oriented conferences.
Yeah. So I'm going to use that question and I'm going to step back a bit,
Yep.
right? And I'm going to probably bring it back to where I was talking about earlier in terms of some of the work that we do.
Mhm.
Consultants, we solve problems that clients come to us with, and the problems are varied. Sometimes it's about like, finance, it's about HR, it's about IT, and sometimes it's all about all of those, it's about all of those things,
Mhm.
especially in like a transaction or a deal where you're dealing with the entire company.
Yeah.
So consulting firms need people who have varied experiences, right? So I'm talking specifically to even like experienced folks right now. You may work in supply chain in a factory, right? Like, um, you know, doing like, SKU rationalization, doing all of those stuff. And you're attracted to a consulting firm because sometimes manufacturing, companies and plants, want that experience because they don't have it in-house. And that's where you come in. So that's where you can like jump into pivot to consulting, like when you're more seasoned in your career, because you have that like functional knowledge. I think students coming into consulting typically bring the research and analytical chops to be able to just like, dissect different problems and different cases
Yeah.
and apply different frameworks. But yeah, I think pretty much like we consulting firms do a lot of different like varied projects,
Mhm.
and folks come from all walks of life, because they need that expertise to continue to grow the business.
Yeah. And two asides there, especially for students, if you're a student and you're doing a lot of internships, you do also bring that experience to consulting firms. Like I was an engineer, did a ton of engineering internships. So being a consultant, if I'm working in industrials or chemicals or anything like that, it does translate, and you have some translatable skills there that Javanni talked about being able to analyze systems and think about frameworks, all of that. And the second, it was funny when I first interned in consulting, I met someone who was a double major in Latin and theater. And I remember just saying, oh, I love this, because there's not a single person who I meet who I'm going to say, you can't be a consultant. I don't care what you're studying. And I think that does speak to the way that consulting firms value talent, and the way that consulting firms understand how they have to be built to serve a variety of customers, clients, a variety of issues come up. So I think that's a really amazing point for people to take note of.
Something else to know, as you mentioned, that my consultant at work,
Mhm.
she was on Broadway before she
Mm.
joined the firm. She
What?
did her MBA. Yeah, she did her MBA at Columbia, and was a Broadway actress before that, right? Like so when she goes into like pitches or negotiations, or she can also like run a program from start to finish,
Mhm.
because like it takes a lot of planning, like a lot of dedication. That's also like a transferable skill. Yeah, people are coming from tech, right? Like another conference to put folks onto is like Grace Hopper, typically for women, or it's a conference that was created for women in tech.
Mhm.
Consulting firms go there as well. So yeah, like you can literally, find your in based on like some of those strengths that you have.
I love that. That's what we're here to do. Tell people how you can get in. That's exactly kind of the intent of this pod. So I really appreciate you. And it's really impressive, and it's crazy how, like, I mean, you put me on game. Like, a lot of it I'm probably not using as I'm kind of going through the process that we're going through, but it's also like, dang, like, where was Javanni when I needed all this game? And why does Javanni know about all these conferences? And I'm sure it speaks to your scrappiness and your resourcefulness, and your you being driven. Like, you're driven, and you know how to network. You are always hungry for different opportunities, and it shows that you have that background, and you have that awareness, and that approach where you see value in so many different instances. I think a lot of times, many of us have been closed-minded a time or two, where you're like, that's not for me, that's not going to help me, they don't want to talk to me, there's no reason for me to be there. And I think it shows a lot of maturation that hopefully a lot of people can cling on to and find for themselves, where y'all hear all the stuff he just mentioned. Like, I don't even have a memory that can hold all these different conferences, but I think it's beautiful for people to be aware that there are so many people out there looking for you, so many conferences that you may feel like it doesn't apply to you, but if you go, typically you'll probably have a really good experience. I love that.
And you're the prize. You're the prize. Like
Ooh.
these firms can't do anything without talent.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
like they're not gonna just staff anybody,
Mhm.
right? On come back to supply chain, like
Yep.
a demand planning or demand forecasting
Mhm.
project, right? Like you're literally the prize, like you're the talent.
I love that. You are the prize. Now tell me this, if you could go back to undergrad and give yourself any advice to better prepare yourself for your current role, life, wherever you want to take it, what would that advice look like? What would you tell a younger Javanni?
I would tell myself to find my in, right?
Mhm.
And I tell that to a lot of like younger folks who I come across and like mentor all the time. Like sometimes, and especially for folks who don't generally traditionally have the access, like folks not just who just don't have the access, but who like access has been barred from and blocked from for like a long time,
Yeah.
right? Like it's harder for us to have, you know, aunts or uncles, like siblings who are like partners and
Yes.
VPs at different firms. Like we understand how like hard that is, right?
Mhm.
Um, but one thing that I would have done is to find my in a bit more in terms of like looking at my direct, wingspan.
Yep.
Who do I know who works somewhere close to, consulting or corporate, like if it's in your church or if it's in your youth group or, somebody who's related to somebody. Like I have a cousin who works at a Big Four, and they've been working there since I moved to US, right? And like I didn't know that until I moved to the US. But if I'd done that research before, I could have easily talked to her, and like, like try to get, even during college, like
Yeah.
a lot of advice to be able to do that. She, did get me referrals, all of that stuff, which was
Yep.
very good. But I could have gotten that sooner. So it's really less about like I think finding your in. And
Mhm.
sometimes if you don't have that in, use the resource that you have. So if you're a part of a fraternity, a sorority, a club on campus,
Mhm.
also folks, like if you're recruiting for consulting and your school has a consulting club and you're not in a consulting club, you're not doing yourself a favor.
Yeah.
Not like it's impossible, but you're not doing yourself a favor because
Mhm.
like those clubs have resources that you can like use in terms of like alums or like casebook or case sessions. So it's really about like, finding my in. I would have done that a bit more intentionally
Mm.
when I was in college.
Yeah. That's deep. That's really helpful. I just hope y'all picked up those gems. Very insightful. From there, how would you describe the career pathway in consulting? What does the leveling look like? What do the roles look like that a person is it cookie cutter? Are there a lot of transition points where there are just so many different things to do? For someone who's interested in being a consultant, what do they have to look forward to from a career progression standpoint?
Yeah, so consulting is very very like vertical, cookie cutter. You pretty much do 2 years as an associate,
Mhm.
maybe like 1 or 2 years as a senior associate. Then you move on to like consultant, which is like the post MBA level. Spend 2, 3 years there, then you go to director, spend maybe 3 years. Then you go to like the pre-partner level. And you spend maybe like 3, 4 years there.
Mhm.
And then you get to partner. And getting to partner, like it's a long and like I say tiring, like it is a demanding, long and like demanding road. But if you do what you love, like especially for experienced hires typically come into consulting firms as like directors and above, like VPs and above, or managers and above, because they have that experience and they can drive a program. So you're looking at like maybe 5, 6 years before you're seriously thinking about getting to partner.
Yeah.
And from then, being a partner at a consulting firm, like you're taking home minimum like 500K like a year, like just off like salary.
Mhm.
And that's like just being very conservative. Because like
Yeah.
there are partners who like way more, but like just generally like anywhere you go, like any consulting firm,
Mhm.
that they're pretty much as a partner, they're bringing that in. But it's like I would say it takes a lot to get to that in terms of just like devoting that time. Because like consulting, especially like transaction consulting, strategy consulting, like it can be very demanding. Um, so yeah, so that's typically the cadence, but that's not the only path. People come to consulting and they leave. I think that's the majority of folks. So your exits are typically to go work at your clients, or to do what you were doing at your clients.
Yeah.
In like the M&A transaction space, it would be to go to private equity, to do like operations or even investing,
Mhm.
or to go work at a client or a corporation doing corporate development. So it's like the same thing like M&A, transactions, like leading the programs internally. Yeah, so I think, or sometimes you work on strategy, you work on revenue. Like as a consultant, the good thing is that you get so much experience and a varied experiences that you can do a variety of roles
Mhm.
post consulting.
Yep. No project lasts forever in consulting. And I think that's a huge benefit for a lot of people if that fits you. I really love the detail in that answer about consulting and the leveling and giving people a little treat about, if you're in it for the long haul, there are a variety of ways in consulting. But if you're in it for the long haul and you get closer to that partner level, a lot of good things, down the road for you, especially if that's just kind of what fits you. This is a really good transition point into our last segment. It is called the three P's. I believe you're also a foodie, but a little three-piece of this, three-piece of that. I know New York got three pieces of everything because y'all got everything up in New York. But I want to do a three-piece about your career. I need 3 words from you that would describe your career journey thus far.
So my three words are bold, transformative, and humbling. And I'll tell you why for each,
Okay.
just briefly. Bold, it is not easy to go through college like in a different country, move to the US, right? Like not having any like US experience, and still want to like do like finance as a career. I worked in restaurants, but I just moved to New York. I moved to the US because that's all I could do, and I continued doing what I had to until like I got my big break. And you know that's what I think folks don't necessarily think about that, but I'd say my moves were like very bold and I stuck to it. Transformative in that like the Javanni from 2017 and the Javanni from 2007 and the Javanni today is like, you know, three different people. But I think throughout all, like the Javannis have, you know, just been very dedicated to doing what they want to do. And then last, humbling. I'd say this journey, I've met so many amazing people. And I've also tried to reciprocate. I've tried to pass on that knowledge.
Yeah.
A lot of what I know right now, I didn't have these resources in college. All right. But I want to ensure that people at the margins, right, have that opportunity to make so much better for themselves and their families.
Yes.
And I feel like even if it's just a means to an end, like you want to like, you know, launch your own business or you want to do some community work, all that stuff, like you can like, you know, do this for however long you want to. And then like go chase your passions.
Yes. Yes. That is beautiful. That is amazing. From there, everything that you mentioned, your humble beginnings, all the success you've realized, your dedication to the grind, what has fueled you to do all of that? Who and or what inspires Javanni?
I think it's my younger me. It really is. It's really my like 6, 7 year old self, even 5, who you know was like again like growing up like dark skin and femme like was not easy. Like especially being you know in the space that I was in. Like at some points I was like, do I like can I even make it in this life? Like, are people gonna give me opportunities? Like, if I work hard enough, like, am I gonna be recognized for those, right? I remember even like during high school, researching like before I go to my bed, like looking up like LGBTQ folks who were Jamaican who had made some amounts of like achievements like in their personal lives and in society. Either they got scholarships or like they were running businesses and stuff. I'm like, what are they doing? And like, how can I do something similar to that? So I think I do a lot for, you know, me when I was younger. And I think there are lots of people who who are right now like me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And it's really about like showing them like that you can, you know, do what you want to do. It's not easy and there are lots of nuances involved. But I try to, you know, make it as accessible to folks as possible.
Yeah.
To see that there is, you know, some light along the
Mhm.
tunnel, but the tunnel continues.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that openness and transparency. Very commendable. And hopefully, from this conversation, so many people will be inspired and take away gems that pour into their lives. So, with you inspiring yourself, the younger Javanni inspiring yourself, there will hopefully be so many others who join Javanni in that. But man, now I want to pivot. I want to pivot, family, to what else you have going on? Really interested to know. What can you share with the people?
Yeah, so something I want to plug is the Host of Ballroom. So I'm an advisor for the Host of Ballroom, which was started by Casey Daly, my best friend, who is a part of the Host of Miyake Mugler, so Casey Miyake Mugler, and Camille Balenciaga, who is the East Coast mother of the Host of Miyake Mugler, or Camille Miyake Mugler, I should say. They were a part of the Host of Balenciaga before. But they basically started organization within the LGBTQ like ballroom scene that gives folks opportunities to perform and sort of teach the history of ballroom to corporate audiences and corporate spaces. And the organization is called the House of Ballroom, the same name on Instagram and also LinkedIn. And they've performed at companies like TikTok, Meta, LinkedIn, Google. Like, they're really doing it. It also provides opportunities for LGBTQ plus young people, right, who usually come to New York without community, without family, an opportunity for them to work and actually make a living off of a subculture that is becoming mainstream. And what typically happens is when subcultures become mainstream, the people who are part of the subculture don't get those opportunities, right, to go on the big campaigns, all that thing. So it's really about getting, bringing, ballroom to the boardroom in a wider respect. So wanted to shout out the host of Ballroom, and I've been helping them with their strategy and also like business development since I started a year ago.
That's wonderful. Check out them links below because we have to plug. We have to plug a safe space for family and really uplifting the uplifters out there in the world, which includes yourself. Is there anything else, Javanni, that you have to leave the people with for our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, I'd say I'm gonna break that again for students and for experienced folks. Students, stay prepared. I think the best thing that you can do is, find your community. If you're looking to get into consulting or anything that you're doing, find the clubs, find the organizations, find the companies that have, visit days and experience days that they invite you to come to. Think about that. Also look at how you're connecting with folks. So if you go to a conference, you meet somebody, you message them on LinkedIn, you request them on LinkedIn, don't just request them like, hi, my name is so-and-so, student here, met you at this conference in this session. Like, oh, I remember this person. That's what the person who got me the consulting job or who brought me the consulting rotational program, that's what they reached out to me because I had done that from Rumba where so many different like folks had reached out before. And then to professionals, it's really like, you just keep going at it. Think about your next step, but at the same time, think about how your next step is going to prepare you for your next step, right? Really think about like what's ahead, because like the further you go up, it's the less chances you have to like take steps. And it really depends on who you are, but I feel like for folks who are like more at the margins, it really, there are limited amount of steps that we can take. And then to everyone, just, be kind, and, uplift folks, coming to mutual aid and supporting community. I think community is the best thing that we have, especially in the times that we live in, which are unprecedented. But I feel like the times that we've lived in have always been unprecedented. But we push through as we should.
Shout out to the community. Javanni, this was a pleasure. This was an honor. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. As I imagined, each episode I do feels like it's the best one yet. And I really appreciate all the gems that you shared. Very thoughtful. And thank you so much for pouring into OneFourthCareers podcast, the viewers and the audience. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Look forward to us talking soon. Peace.
Have a good one.
Thank you all so much for sticking around to watch this episode. This was another amazing show. Super ecstatic to bring you this particular career and this person. Really inspiring, shared a lot of transparency and openness, doing some really amazing stuff in New York. And I hope that you all were able to just pick up one, 2, 3, however many gems that you can, because there were a lot. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what career you want to do next. Look forward to having you all access those links below to check out what Javanni mentioned. Some really cool and powerful things going on out here. Everyone stay safe, stay happy, stay blessed. Peace.